What is up? 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 I'm up. It's early. So I got this inspiration to make a video this morning about head games, mind games. People love playing mind games. And I, myself included, like to play mind games. Now, over the years, first let me clarify, I guess, what I'm talking about. Generally on the internet, dealing with people can be rather jagged at times, and people have very strong opinions. And they're not as willing to bend for others in a conversation as they are face to face. If a person comes out and says to somebody at work, so what do you do? And they say, oh, well, what are you going to do today? I'm a Christian, I'm going to church. And they say, oh, well, I don't believe in Christianity, it's not for me, I don't think it's real. And then the other person's going to say, oh, okay, that's your choice. Not might probably say anything. On the internet, the person would be like, oh, then you're a sinner, you're a hater. I'm just making a general statement for somebody who would do this. A person who might abuse the privilege of being able to hide. Sorry for using Christianity as an example, it was just off the top of my head, because it's one I've run into several times. But it's not always religion-based. It can be political. It can be people arguing about science. Even if I say, well, I'm not sure if science can answer this, and people will say, oh, you're just a fucking idiot. On and on. Anyway, sorry about the language there. Speaking of which, I generally use a lot more bad language in my day-to-day life, but I learned some tact, and learned how to not put it on my videos too much, because I'm just out here talking. Who knows if there's kids in the room? That kind of stuff. It's a respect for people, I guess. And so some people just don't have that respect. They don't seem to have any tact. They don't seem to have any real conscious effort towards being civil. Like, it's nothing but proving themselves. Ego completely dominated. And when I was younger, I guess I was kind of like that, especially from the time I was like 18 to like 25, I thought I knew everything. You grow up and you learn that you don't, or else you don't grow up and you just take with you what you think you know, which a lot of people have chosen. Anyway, so these kind of people tend to come from households where they were either abused or had major parent issues or love issues or major trust issues where they lost something or something was taken from them young. These are the people who tend to be the abusers and play the mind games. You can be assured that if a person obsesses over one particular subject, let's say they accuse you of something over and over, you can be assured that that most likely happened to them. Extreme projection, not even realizing it. But the way to deal with people who play head games is sometimes to play the game. You don't have to bite. You don't have to be offended by what they say. But just let them know that you're not going to buy into their offensive language, nor are you going to walk away without speaking your mind, but you're going to say what you want, and you're going to make that known, and if the person doesn't agree, then that's their problem. That being said, of course, it's everyone's problem when it's something that's reflected on society, I guess. Everyone has to... You don't have to bite. You don't have to buy into a conversation or an argument if you don't want to. But you fully have the right to, especially if a person's directing something towards you. So anyway, I know that, I made a video last week where I said that I had trust issues, and I didn't realize that until I made the video. I did, but not... I thought about it a lot because my father died when I was young. And I know that affected me. I was like 14, So it was a very critical time. And after that, I I managed to even make it through school. I went to school the next day after he died even. It was strange, you know, it was just my way of just doing it, you know, just move on with life. And then later on, I found out that, you know, I had been totally hiding myself from reality, you know, because later on, I got ripped off by a couple friends, and then I ended up having trust issues too. And I was afraid to make friends for two reasons. A, because I've been ripped off by my friends, and B, because I've lost people in my life that I love. And those two things can really make or break a person. You know, if I wasn't willing to deal with my own issues, then I would have had that forever. You know, I overcame my trust issues pretty easily by forgiving everyone who had ever wronged me. I even met an old good friend that had ripped me off twice, and I hadn't seen him in 15 years, and now we hang out all the time. We're like good friends, you know, and I trust him, you know. He helps me with my garden and stuff, and brings me fertilizer, and he's just a great guy, you know, and I'm glad that I was able to get over that. So when are we going to get over, you know, can we ever get over some of these, you know, people who have been, if a person's been harassing you or wronging you for a really long time, can you ever forgive? I know people who are abused by their parents, and they generally don't forgive that, ever. You know, I've had people say, well, I let it go, but you know that they're still holding it in. That, they have the right for that, you know, that's something you can't leave. If your parents were abusive to you, or even worse, if they completely ignored you, or didn't give you enough love, that's a lifelong problem. And this is why, you know, I treat my kids with such respect and reverence. You know, it's not an easy thing to raise kids. It's not an easy thing to be a human either. I mean, to raise ourselves, to try to figure out what the hell we're doing here and what the whole thing's about. It's along the way we meet a lot of good people and a lot of bad people and a lot of good people who just do bad things or say bad things that mean well, that have good hearts. But merely having a good heart, merely having a good demeanor inside doesn't necessarily mean that people have to forgive the nonsense on the outside. And I found that not giving people your energy is the best way to retain it. I woke up this morning, and I guess the reason why I made this video is I haven't seen, Eric hasn't made it, I haven't seen you make any videos in a while. I don't know if you're watching this or not, but I had a dream last night. 2 nights ago I had this strange dream about the ring and this whole paper priest thing. It was very interesting. Last night I passed out, woke up this morning, and as soon as I woke up I got up, and my first thought was to try to recount my dream, I knew it was something important. I finally recounted one part of it, just one scene. It was where I was hanging out with Mac. Yes, Mac. Mr. McCleary and I were hanging out in my dream. And I know that from the dream there were a few others there from the YouTube world, you know. And of course dreams, sometimes what you see is more of a feeling than actual vision. So I felt like all of the conflicting arguers were there. And I remember talking to Mac and saying something to the effect of, hey, now that we're face to face, this is stupid shit. This internet shit. You know, look at us. We're real people. You know, we're real people living real lives. The feeling is of resolving things is a good thing. So I guess in the back of my mind, maybe my brain is telling me, you know, even though you've let it go with these people, you still have a heart and feel for them. You know, I still have. You know, as much as a person can say, well, screw you, I don't agree with you, you're an idiot, you're an asshole, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Most people want some form of resolution. It's unfortunate that for some it means that the person has to agree with them completely and say, okay, you were right, you're the master. Ooh. But it ain't like that, you know. People just don't do that. It's not real. It's not reality. It's not the way that people are. There are some people who are very passive and will, you know, bow down to anyone who points the finger at them. So while if I could throw a little bit in on that, there are people who are pushovers in life. There are people who are also leaders, and there are people who are followers. And there are large groups of leaders trying to lead each other, okay? And then there are large groups of followers who are trying to figure out who to follow. Now, this isn't something that we can, I think, conquer or get over. This is the way that human nature is. I've been observing the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom for so long to try to use that as a reference point to how humans should live. And I know some people would say, well, you can't watch, nature and know how humans are supposed to live because we're totally different entities. But I don't see it that way. I see us as, intertwined. Some people say we don't belong here. I feel like we do. So we are doing our best here to figure it all out. And there are always going to be people who are going to take charge. I've realized that. And there are always going to be people who follow, and there are always going to be people who want to take charge that have absolutely no tact or any type of ethos, no credibility to them. Generally, these are the people who tend to play the most head games. People who are claiming to speak nothing but truth, but really not having any point or resolution behind it other than praise. So when you see a person who's constantly putting out, let's say, information on YouTube videos, and then they're just bashing anyone who questions that information, most likely the person is putting the information up to gain that praise of, wow, you're smart, you've discovered this. It's a way of reconciling that what they didn't have when they were younger. Perhaps a person who was ignored by their parents may tend to want praise by the world. Now, don't get me wrong here. I mean, we all want praise. And this is kind of one of the main points here in my argument, or my opinion, I guess, is that we all want praise from someone. I know that there are people out there who say that they don't care what other people think of them, that they do what they do and other people can fuck off, and the truth is that those people want it even more sometimes. When anyone receives praise for what they've done, or what they've said, or what they've learned, or taught, or shared, it makes them feel good inside, and it makes them want to share more. Here's where the mind game part gets interesting. Is sometimes anyone who's, I guess, looked into the, quote, evidence of anything, let's talk extraterrestrials, we can talk about, channeling, UFOs, whatever. If a person's looked deep enough into any one subject, which I have looked very deep into many of these subjects, you tend to come out with some great ideas at first, but the deeper you search, the more you find out that you don't know what's real. You can't sort through the BS. You start to find people who had promoted it as a way of control, say a control system, a belief system, or a political system, and it really makes it difficult to get down to the root of it. And so a person like me, I just had to push it all aside. Like a while back, I was into numerology, understanding 9 and 6 and the occult number stuff, not because I was into occult, but because I wanted to understand these deeper secrets. And I found a large group of people who are very interested in these subjects, but are very spiteful towards one another, very hateful, and some people who are very, very opposed to it. And at that point, I have just abandoned it because I wasn't interested anymore. It had nothing to do with the conflict or the mind games. It had everything to do with me seeing that I did not want to go down that road. And I'm not trying to tell anybody this is good or bad to study. I'm just saying, for me, there's a dark road that a person could go down to try to understand things too deeply on a level that we don't, or are not capable of understanding, in my opinion. So anyway, the people who play mind games are, for example, there's this one guy who, I forgot to mute this thread from a video that I watched like months ago, and It was about this guy who was talking, Bruce Lipton, I think, was talking about DNA and how you can rewrite and reprogram your DNA, okay? Through conscious intention. Now, this is one of those things that half the science world is just going to go, you're absolutely nuts, you cannot change your DNA. Then there's going to be a lot of people saying, oh yes, you can, look at this and this and this. This is one of those examples of something that the layman can never know for sure. So, this guy responded to a comment on this thread that was so old, but the guy had commented, he's a guy that I'd seen there last time, and I realized that he'd been commenting on all this guy's videos. Big, long comments about how he's fooling people, people are going to die because he's rewriting telling them that they can fix their DNA when it's not true, and trying to explain the science behind it, and laughing at people and scoffing. And he continues and continues to this day, months later, on all this guy's videos. That to me revealed that the person has a trust issue. That he was either lied to or fooled, or someone he knows was wrong, and now he's trying to, voice that distrust. And I'm using that as an example to why some of these people are so obsessed about certain things. And to be sure, I'm not talking about people who are interested in something or have a particular obsession. There's a major difference. The people who are obsessed in this way are the people who, if you confront them or ask them for evidence on anything, they'll yell at you, call you names. A majority of these folks reduce everything to character attacks when they're cornered. I mean, how many times have I had a conversation with someone that seemed very civil and reasonable until I disagreed with them, and then I became, or as one guy said the other day, why don't you go smoke some more pot? And then he said, why don't you go make some more mushrooms videos about mushrooms for the children? Now that's a good example of one. This was a person who went to a character attack to try to get to me by bringing up something I rarely talk about, mushrooms, and connecting it to children and making it appear as if I'm trying to give mushrooms to children. I think my response was something like, let's have a mushroom kid party or something. It's like, you just don't bite on that shit, because I know that I'm not making videos to get kids to take mushrooms. It's obvious. And when the character attacks, when people reduce it to that, it usually for me is like, they just call me a stoner, basically. Oh, you're sitting in a cloud of smoke, or this or that. They will find any single thing they can pick out. Now, a couple of years back, if somebody was really being rude on YouTube, I would go to their channel. I would see what kind of stuff they're interested in, and I might do it as a way to know if they're serious or if they're just trolling. But I remember this one time saying to this kid, why don't you go back to playing video games, because that's what all those videos were about. And I realized, that's not my right to say that. I have no right to attack what a person does in their life, And that was just my way of trying to retort. So, from that point on, I don't even, if people are argumentative, I don't even visit their channels generally. I don't want to have an image of what I think they're like. I just want their words to speak for themselves. And you learn to pick out the bullshit. You learn to know who is trying to get you riled. Just like I said, a few subs now and again who will poke and prod at me. That's fine. I need a poking and prodding. But when they're being verbally abusive, you can tell. And there's a difference. And it's not worth defending yourself against that. This is why I don't make videos in response to people who are, I've had some pretty harsh, rude comments from people. It's just not worth my time. Because I know that they're just trying to get my energy. And I'm not going to give it to them. So, head games and trust issues. Are we all just broken? Are we all damaged goods? Sometimes I wonder. But anyway, head games, mind games, it's just humanity's at a major, I wanted to say crossroads, but that would imply that we actually have paths to choose from. And it appears to me, to sum all this up, that the root of much of our displeasure, our disdain, our sarcasm and satire and insult just comes from our confusion of not knowing exactly who we are, and even more so, not really knowing who other people are. Because the line between sanity and insanity seems to be rather thin these days. And of course, an insane action is something that's repeated over and over, expecting a different result. And that seems like to be society's kind of plea to try to pull ourselves out of this rut we're in. If you want to call it that, the big picture is just too confusing. And so we can only live our own lives and just talk about the things that we know in our lives. And some of us choose to sit down and make videos and talk about things that are important to us or want to share. And I think we owe it to each other to respect that and to respect each other's views and to be tactful in the way that we discuss things. And for those people out there who are being abused or picked on or harassed, just know that the intention is to knock your self-esteem down, to try to get a laugh at the expense of you questioning yourself and who you are. There's a difference between critical, constructive criticism and abuse or hatred. And each person, I think, knows that line very well, but has to understand the mind games and how they work in order to understand how people are thinking and what kind of things they're playing. People will set mind games up over time so they can try to knock somebody down. So knowing yourself is really the only way out of that. And I know myself. So sometimes I have to re-meet myself, but I know myself. So anyway, I better just leave it at that. A long video about head games that probably got nowhere. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.